Just quickly give an introduction as follows, that if we evaluate the trends in the world today, we will observe that fundamental to doing business and fundamental to succeeding in business today by all forms of establishments or businesses, you require data to be collected. Your data needs to be validated so that you'll be making decisions that are based on founded facts. You will need to store this data because there is a requirement for you to keep this data for some period of time, arising from many reasons. And there's no value of keeping data except you're able to analyze the data. Manual forms of analysis of data has proved in recent times not to be effective. You cannot do much. And so you still have to depend on the cyber capability to effectively analyze your data. Fundamental to any business that will succeed and perform effectively are all these elements: the data storage, the data collection, the data validation, the analysis of it. If it is so, then we will all agree that since we have relationship and interactions with the entire financial globe, the Nigerian capital market community cannot be insulated from the fact that if we must succeed and perform well, then the fundamentals that we mentioned above have got to play in our community, and they play. Indeed, the Nigerian capital market players and operators rely extensively on ICT infrastructure to drive their operations and service their customers and satisfy, in addition to all those regulatory requirements. For all market operators, you agree with you that it's easier for you to file in your reports through the cyberspace than for you to be carrying manual and physical document to Idejo Street or to Custom Street.
Thank you all. So the panelists will be coordinated by Mr. John Anyanwu, and they will be taking us on social engineering, the neglected human factor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we stand on existing protocols. We'll be looking at breaching the human firewall with a focus on strengthening the neglected human factor. So we all know that the last quote that Mrs. Oyewole spoke about, that's where Kevin Mitnick talked about organizations that might have implemented several solutions and several processes, but if you've not built the human factor, then all those implementations will really be in vain. There are certain elements of building the human factor in cybersecurity, and you can summarize them in three major areas. One is you need to build awareness. People need to know about cybersecurity. They need to know about some of the things that are happening in the past, and you also need to know about emerging threats and emerging trends. That campaign must always continue so that at the forefront of people's mind is cybersecurity and the risks involved in that. Another one is that you need to train responsible personnel. So those that are responsible for cybersecurity, the CISOs, the chief risk officers, even the CEOs and the boards need to know their cybersecurity responsibilities. And then lastly, you need to be able to measure and monitor these investments in people with regards to cybersecurity. So these are the three major pillars within which we are going to have this discussion. And once again, I want to welcome all the panelists, Iwakwo, Sam, Sadiq, Taiye, to this panel session. So I'll start with Iwakwo, because he's closest to me anyway. So what do you think, looking at the industry, what will you say the industry is doing to keep cyber attacks at bay?
Thanks, John. In various forms and fora, the industry as a whole, I must say, awareness of cybersecurity has matured, so to speak. As of traffic into the network, and so you're saying that this is what I permit, this is what I will not permit, this is what I may filter, this is what I should not filter. Very good. Easy, the machine will work that way. But when it then comes to a human being, at some point, some of the rules may work. At some point, the of the human being. Because what these guys look at today, they look at the attributes that we as human beings are wired of and try to take advantage of those same attributes, what I am made up of. So my ears are made to hear, and my ears hearing enables me to function as a human being. So if you speak, I have no option than to hear. Agreed? Now, if I hear, the next thing is how I process this thing that I hear, and the decision I take depend on my emotion, not only emotion alone, my intellect and my ability to take a decision at that point. That is what these fraudsters are just taking themselves after today. Why we talk about machine learning to improve the capability? We are fellow human beings. So if I am a thief and you are a thief, I know the tricks, right? So I'm going to play along those tricks. So they play along emotions, they play along greed, they play along humans' insatiable needs to grow wealthy and to get bigger. And so anything they're going to do, and they know that human beings also like convenience and ease. So they play along those lines that will make things easier and convenient. In today's world, much about people, right, on Facebook and all of that. Just 2 weeks ago, prior to this time, so we talk about phishing in emails and all of that, social media and all of that. 3 weeks ago, there's a new trend of they're creating profiles, right? Not just on Facebook, but their own contact center. So they're going to engage you. If your bank engages you by mail, they will engage you by mail. If your bank engages you by chatbot, they will engage you by chatbot. If your bank engage you whichever means, because what they do nowadays, they also have accounts. They also exist where we exist. They eat where we eat. They sleep where we sleep. They breathe where we breathe. So they know oxygen is oxygen. So what they do, sit back and play along the same line. So today, 3 days ago, we then saw several cases where they've created sites, right, on Facebook. They were chatting with people. And so we'll go along and say the easy thing, look for where you have any bank's logo, where you have any bank's name, whether it's a case where it's, let's say, Access Bank 123, which is not real, and shut them down. And then the next thing is they just create Facebook, Iguapo, that's all. So whatever machine you have used to learn that will not see it, because there's no logo of Access Bank, there's no mention of Access Bank, just Iguapo and John chatting. And in between, discussions then go on. And then John chats with this person, and what is happening is just simply collecting information. And because we like convenience, so we do USSD, we do all of these platforms, the things are going until John screams. So the other part of that human firewall is to say, how will John quickly respond when he is a victim? That's a part we must not miss out. John should know who to talk to, who to call. John have access to block his account immediately, even though the first one may have gone, so that the bleeding does not continue. You cannot eliminate mosquitoes from Niger Delta, but you can reduce the number of people that can have malaria attack. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've been on many panels with Irapo. So he has so much to say, and we have so little time. But we'll try and make the best of the time. We'll listen to another panelist, Mr. Sam Okenye. Mr. Sam, you lead the cybersecurity function in UBA, and you've invested a lot in cybersecurity from a technology point of view and even from a process point of view. But one of the things that Iwakwa really mentioned is the fact that the way social engineering is going, which is attacks towards the individuals and customers, keep on changing. So how are you managing that? How are you, if you look at how are you making investments in that, and what kind of ratio is it compared to the investments you're making in technology and processes?
Thank you, John. I want to say that the issue of cybersecurity is a serious issue, and what we've seen, also the trend, because when you look at what is happening in the industry today, in terms of customers of banks that are losing money, and not only the banks, also that are losing money, it all boils down to that the bad guys are, in some world, they are also winning. And then most attack also you see today, it's not, because these guys also know that, look, banks are fighting their level of security, keep raising the bar, making huge investment in trying to secure our systems, our network. Their target is the human element, just to manipulate the human being to do what ordinarily they will not want to do. we see that it's a major issue, and and also to be able to tackle that, also in the normal security program, you also need to plot in the aspect of the social engineering, tackle them in 3 ways. One is the preventive, second is the detective, and the thirdly is being able to respond. And for any strategy you must put in place to be able to tackle the issue of social engineering, you need to look at those 3 key factors. So in the aspect of the preventive, it starts with the education aspect, because the reality is that when you don't educate your staff, they will open the door, because at the end of the day, you build all the controls, but a single individual can open the door for the bad guys to step in, not knowingly. But I mean, of course, there are those that are, those who collaborate with outsiders, but we're talking about unknowingly open the door to fraudsters or the bad guys to step in. So education is key. And then the starting point also, your policy has to be in place, and people need to know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Education is cool. Your preventive method is to educate them, but however, it's not sufficient. When you educate, the next point is your ability to detect and your ability to respond when things will go wrong, because it will surely happen. So when you think that you educated, you've been able to train your staff and everything is fine, everything is not fine, because these guys come in various ways, which most of that will even outsmart the best of your staff. So it's a continuous activity. So I want to say that in dealing with issue of social engineering, you need to still wear your 3 cap. You must have your preventive, you must have your detective, and you must have the capability to respond at every point in time, because it's that response that will enable you to quarantine the system. Say, hey, we have our staff that have been affected, quarantine these systems, deal with them, and also send further education to your staff. And there's other bit which we do, because apart from the fact that you have those mechanisms in place, you also want to be able to test the ability of your personnel. So that you try to simulate and to find out how many of the staff will fall victim, how many of the staff will fall for it.
About monitoring and measuring investments in cyber awareness and cyber training, because it's possible that we might also not be making the right case for that. How can businesses see the reason for them to invest in cyber awareness and training? How do you measure it? How do you monitor that investment to ensure that it gives you the right returns?
Okay, thank you very much. Like Sam said, most importantly, we need to first of all create awareness. Awareness is key, and cybersecurity awareness cannot be overemphasized. You can't overstate it, okay? Because for you to be able to know, for you to be able to detect problems or detect attacks, you need to know the various forms by which these attacks. First of all, social engineering is the most dangerous and the most difficult attack to prevent. Like it was said earlier, this social engineering was used to alter the path that was taken by the US elections. I don't know if you've heard about it. 12 Russian intelligence agents manipulated and they altered the path of the elections. And how did they do it? They did this simply by social engineering. All they did was, they didn't hack the US infrastructure. The US has one of the best securities in the world. And with all their investment, Pentagon and all, they were still susceptible. Why? Because of the human factor. All they did was put up a phishing email to one of the campaign managers. And the campaign manager, of course, almost anybody will fall for such attacks. Even security firms, large security firms, that their main job is security, they are falling for these attacks. So we can't blame an election campaign manager. All he did was click on the link. He was told, oh, your password is about to expire, or there are different forms. They come in different forms. Like, oh, your account was accessed. I'm sure some of us must have seen such a mail that, oh, there is someone accessed your account from China or from India, that you need to change your credentials. Have you gotten anything like that before? If you have, that is probably an attack. And you would think, I I've never been to China, I've never been to Russia. I need to quickly change my credentials. The page is going to be as convincing as the original page from the OEM, from Google. Everything will be the same way. It's pretty easy because I'm a pen tester. It's pretty easy to replicate the website of Google. Very simple. It won't take me a minute to do that. And all I need to do is just host it on a web server and then send it to you. So you think, oh, my password has been compromised. Let me quickly change my credentials. Once you do that, they would change your password because they are going to carry out a man-in-the-middle attack. They will change your password, go to Google, confirm the change, so everything will be fine as far as you're concerned, but then they have access to your credentials. Most of us, we don't really seem to understand the impact of our email. If a simple email can change US citizens' path for an election, and then, because almost everybody was surprised, maybe I shouldn't overflog it, that Trump won. Trump wouldn't have won the elections if not for the Russian interference and intervention. And that is as a result, again, simple social engineering. So we can do a test of social engineering here, and we can be rest assured that we will fall for it. It's just as simple as if I want to do a simple social engineering attack here, all I need to do is go to the restroom, go to the wash hand basin, put a flash drive, a simple flash, attractive looking 16 gig or 32 gig flash drive, drop it by the wash hand basin and walk out. On that wash hand basin, I've installed backdoors, I've installed Trojans, I've installed keyloggers, I've installed password harvesters. All I need you to do is pick it up. Of course, we are greedy. You see something like that, you want to pick it up. All I need you to do is pick it up and plug it into your laptop or your desktop and have access into your infrastructure, irrespective of the amount of investment, millions of dollars you might have made securing your perimeter and trying to protect yourself. Once I have access to one system, I can easily escalate and gain access to everything.
And thank you, my fellow panelists. I understand your passion because, like yourself, we sit on the client side facing clients and trying to consult them on what to do. I respond to cases almost on a weekly basis and what you find that they all have in common is there is a human involved. One of my favorite quotes in cybersecurity of all time is actually from who some of you might know, Remy Afon from Seychelles, who said, "You might have all the tech in the world, but there's no patch for human stupidity." And honestly, I couldn't emphasize it enough. Most of the attacks that we see, actually, they do start with either a phishing email or something of the sort. But as we've alluded to today, it's going beyond that. The physical and the human, and that the physical world of the human side of the human element is very important. I'll give you an example. You've alluded to the USB sticks in the toilet. I was once involved in a case where a client asked me to red team them, i.e. break in without any prior knowledge of the business. And this was a big retailer. And they had the best technology, and they had honestly, you have to do these things time bound because, as you know, if you give anybody enough time, they will eventually break in. And for 4 days, we spent the longest time trying to penetrate their systems remotely, phishing emails, and I think only 2 people clicked on the emails, and actually they had the good systems in place to block that. They had segregation of networks, as you mentioned. On the 4th day, we showed up with overall from one of these engineering firms, and we said, "Oh, we'd like to come in, and we have a meeting with so and so. We have checked LinkedIn for the head of IT, and we want to check your internet." Luckily, the security guy blocked us. So the next day, we went to the car park and just branded their USB sticks and just polluted the whole place with them. Eventually, somebody walked in with the credentials, and if they were aware, what they would do is they would take that USB stick to an environment where it could be tested in a safe environment in IT security. Now, John, you asked a question of are companies investing enough? Look, in this environment, we've seen, and it's all over the world, not just Nigeria, by the way. We've seen the world go from a compliance-led model to a risk-based model, i.e., what are the actual risks and threats to our businesses? It's important, of course, to have the threat intelligence of what's happening around the world, what could be coming our way. As you said, networks are borderless, but you also need to be aware of the way in which humans can be exploited. You all look like very important people. You all look like you travel.
when you leave your environment, you're working remotely. What is the Wi-Fi network you are signing up to? You're connecting to, yes. I can sit here today and change my hotspot to Nigerian Stock Exchange secure. And some of you that want Wi-Fi, maybe MTN is messing up. You might decide to connect, and I will collect I will take everything from you, and I will use that somewhere else. Similarly, from the human side, when we collect data, your guy, a lot of times you see that employees, maybe I should take a step back. There's targeted and non-targeted. Targeted is they are coming for you directly. There's non-targeted, which is the phishing emails that are spread out and you need to train your people. Similarly, you have the malicious insider and people who are honestly and genuinely wanting to do their work and wanting to do it efficiently. That's why when you sometimes you go to a counter and somebody's taking your personal information, but they're attending to 3 people. Is that person next to you, are they really here to actually transact, or are they just listening? Are your employees aware that they need to have the training for privacy, and once they collect that data, where is it going? John, we've spoken about the Yahoo hack today, which actually started with a phishing email, as you know. If that person was aware, that breach wouldn't have happened. They often ask, how do you monetize something intangible like cybersecurity? How do you do it? I can give you a good example. Yahoo understands that at the time, they were trying to sell their business to Verizon. The asking price for an agreed price actually was $1.85 billion. That's a lot of money. Following the hack, they eventually sold for $1.5 billion. Yeah, we might sit here and say those are huge numbers, and what's the difference? That's $350 million, and that could make a big difference in my life. But that is a good example of how you can look at an asset that you hold, or including your humans, and you can actually pin down to how much it would cost you if you were to lose those assets, in terms of either they did something wrong or they did something malicious. And it's why we would always encourage, aside from your asset IDs and understanding what the impact of if you were to knock something out of your business, what is the actual threat from a human perspective?
We hear, oh, this person is being hacked, that company is being hacked, and so on and so forth. So everybody has this picture of some bad guy sitting somewhere in the world and, trying to break down firewalls and get into systems. What we lose sight of is the other type of hacker. In fact, the origin of hacking, which is social engineering. There is no hack that happens without some form of social engineering being carried out by the hacker. They need to try to know the person that they are targeting. Whether it's mass, whether it's targeted, they will go and do some research. And I'll be talking a lot about, what those guys do. So, what is social engineering? Okay? This is just about trying to look at a human being, who you are, what you do. It involves some sort of psychological, fooling otherwise of anybody. They play on your side. That's what social engineering is about. It's not something specific. It's not just about Facebook or LinkedIn. It's about all of it. It's about dropping, it's something that plays, it's psychological, it's an art, it is scientific, all in the same, complex, but also very, very simple. And I'll be focusing a lot on social engineering. And, the social engineering organization defines it as a blend of science, psychology, and art. Like I said, while it is amazingly complex, it is also simple. It is defined as any act that influences a person to take an action that may or may not be in their interest. So just to give you, when your kid walks up to you and says, Daddy, it's social engineering. So don't look at it only from the perspective. When you understand what we're trying to say about social engineering, you understand the importance of how to then defend yourself when people use it against you maliciously. So somebody sent you, like I play chess, right? So you can trick me by chess. But once you send me something about chess, my antenna goes up. because I've been trained, right? I do cybersecurity. I'm into the business of cybersecurity. So I have been trained. And that's what we will try to do, to give you today the little tips of things that you need to watch out for. You know, that people don't use your love, the things, your hobbies, against you. Okay? We're running. Madam already talked about RSA, right? RSA is a huge security company. In 2011, what happened was that an attacker sent an email. It says 2011 recruitment plan. And then maybe somebody who has a brother or a cousin or a sister, he feels needs a job. He wants to know the positions. They crafted email so well that even though the system has sent this email into the junk, the guy retrieved the email from the junk and then clicked on that Excel attachment, trying to find out the 2011 recruitment plan. What happened is that a serious security IT company was breached, and a 2048-bit key was stolen. And in an associated attack, Lockheed was hacked, and an important blueprint of a U.S. air machine was stolen. The only way we can know how it happened is that another country built a replica.
Ms. Favor Femi, with regards to the cyber security and social engineering, it's actually a combined effort. That is, it's not just using technology, because technology is alone will not survive. However, the combination of building capacity, educating your workforce, as in your staff, your employees, and not just facing just one particular sector or segment of your employee. All your workforce, from the lowest person to your management to the board, everyone needs to have cybersecurity awareness, training, education. They need to be able to spot attack. They need to understand when a phishing email, if they have received a phishing email, and what action they need to do. All this, is very, very important for organizations to be able to circumvent cyber attacks against either their staff or against their network as well.